This week, we are a news-heavy episode this week because they didn't play, so there's no match to talk about. And again, to reiterate, Burnley will have probably happened by the time you hear these words. So this is all recorded before that, so we are blissfully unaware of whatever result transpires. So
blissfully, yeah, that's the word we're going to go with.
Serenity now.
We're a few hours away from it still as we record. So
yeah. Well, kicking off our discussion as we record, this is Sunday, and yesterday is Saturday, the 16th. I had to peek around to find the right angle to see my calendar. Manchester City defeated Chelsea 1-0 to win the FA Cup for how many times in Pep Guardiola's tenure?
I don't know and don't really care. Congrats, I guess. I'm only disappointed, in all honesty, that the game did not go to extra time. Unfortunately, apparently finished in a rather tidy 90 minutes. Chelsea was able to, I don't believe they've officially announced it yet, but Chelsea has, it's been relatively confirmed that Xabi Alonso will be taking over as Chelsea manager at the start of next season. Most recently, rather crashing and burning at Real Madrid. But before that, of course, had been the manager at Bayer Leverkusen on their unbeaten season. So,
okay. I'm at the point now where I know most of the names of most of the managers, but they move around so much, I'm not always able to remember which club they most recently managed for. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. There's going to be that group of managers that just Nuno Espirito Santo is probably like the easiest reference of that. I think he's only done 2 clubs this season because he started at Forest. Now he's at West Ham, but I feel like he was a third somewhere in the middle of that. Or maybe it was just Forest that's had like 4 managers this year.
Yeah.
Or Spurs, and they're 4 or 5. Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, there are some that just kind of churn through managers.
Managerial merry-go-round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but bringing it back to Arsenal a little bit, we had some injury updates, right? What's going on with Ben White?
Yeah, so the bad news first. It is the end of the season for Ben White, and that stinks. You know, he's a guy obviously generally very well liked by the Arsenal fan base. Somewhat less so with the wider English soccer sphere, but who cares? He's ours, and we love him. Unfortunately, as we saw the injury he picked up against West Ham last weekend, the good news is that he will not need surgery. The bad news is that we are not going to see him for the rest of the season, and it sounds like this will almost certainly cost him a trip to the World Cup this summer. Presumably, he was under. I mean, he played in their last window, so presumably he was under consideration by Thomas Tuchel and in England. But that I'm guessing that will not be the case, especially over the next week or so as World Cup rosters begin to be announced. It's a scary time to get injured. There were, see guys being hurt, and as a result, knowing that they not only that they will lose the end of the season, which for many of them at this point in the year, like their clubs not really either not won anything or has already figured out what they're going to win, or their position's kind of stable. And so, I don't want to say the games don't matter, but to lose a World Cup because of a game in this moment, there was running articles this morning. 2 Americans got injury scares, Brendan Aronson with Leeds, and then Chris Richards at Palace. Well, apparently Richards came back into the game. He was taken off for treatment, came back on, and will be fine, which is good because from the American perspective, he is an important player. Aronson is certainly depth in the midfield, but I think we could survive without him. But you're at that time of the year where those injuries are really going to play a role in how the World Cup goes. So obviously,
especially disappointing for Ben White, given that he didn't play the last time around just because of personnel conflict. So he was probably hoping that this might have been his chance. It stinks.
Yeah, I believe he's 28, so this is really kind of the sweet spot for him in terms of his age and whatnot. But obviously that stinks. It is good, however, that he will be from the sound of it, from that injury. I don't know that I could say he'll be He'll be back at training when the club meets up again in July when they start getting ready for next season. But certainly the expectation is without surgery, this wouldn't be a long-term absence, but long enough. And certainly if you're England can't sit here and say, well, if you can show up for the knockout rounds, that'd be great. Because they're going to presumably want him in the group stage as well. So
right. Yeah, well, give me some good Arsenal injury news.
Well, I don't know that I can call it good news yet, but at least we could say there's a chance of good news. And I say chance advisedly because that is the word Mikel Arteta used to describe the possible appearance of Jurrien Timber. He last played for Arsenal back in the Everton game when they beat Everton 2-0. That was the Max Dowman coming out party, for those people who remember. So it's only been 2 months since that injury that he's played.
Wow, it feels like way, way longer than 2 months we've been without Timber.
Yeah, I mean, great to remember that also went right into an international break, which obviously played a role in there. But he's, he obviously was with the team at West Ham. It's going to be a case of we'll see. It does raise an interesting lineup question. Do you feel comfortable starting Jurrien Timber? Because the game, I mean, obviously all the games matter for Arsenal, all 3 of them left. Do you start him in Budapest if he hasn't been able to play
right
since then? I mean, there are instances, we can talk a little about this when we get towards our Champions League final preview episode, so to speak, as we get ready for that. But I mean, there are instances where players have done that. I'm thinking of Per Mertesacker came on and played, basically having not played, I've been out for a long time, and then proceeded to play excellently in an FA Cup final where we beat Chelsea. But also, Per Mertesacker was a, seasoned senior international player, World Cup winner, top tier. At that point, obviously a little past his prime as a player, but certainly one who's very capable overall. But still, it'd be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks, because I don't think Arsenal can afford much in the way of rotation in terms of the lineup and whatnot. I don't think they have to. With getting the week between games. Obviously, we played last weekend. We have, we played what was on Saturday. We played, and now the game's on.
Right.
We played Saturday, and our next game's the following Monday. So we're already a week plus. Our game after this is going to be Sunday, so we got 6 days there. The next game's the Champions League final, which is Saturday from Sunday. So we're not doing the 2-game-a-week thing. Man, it'll be interesting. But the point is, there's a chance. I'm saying there's a chance. That's all we've got. It'll be interesting to see what we get when we get to looking at the bench, for example, tomorrow for the Burnley game, or perhaps for the Palace game. And if Timber's on there, does that look? In the meantime, though, I think the most likely scenario is you see Christian Mosquera starting at right back, which I think is probably the best solution for everyone. And again, we've talked about he's been good this year, so I don't feel particularly nervous about that.
No. Yeah, we'll see. There's a chance is better than where we were a week ago, and especially missing Ben White, that chance is gonna be nice to at least have him as an option potentially. So, rolling along, I got an email this week that Arsenal's 26-27 home kits are officially available. They looked fairly familiar based on what we had discussed from a kit leak that Footy Headlines had several weeks ago. But nice. It's funny seeing the slow evolution. So this will be, I think, my 5th home shirt that I will have lived through with them. And it's funny how incrementally, basically the first season I watched them, it was the polo collar season, right? But then after that, it's just kind of been very gradual incremental changes. So then it was the gold stripes, but pretty much the same overall kind of raglan type design that we've had every year since then. And the gold stripes gave way to the blue stripes. And then this year we had the all red, one shade of red with the sublimated pattern all over. this time now, we basically have the same thing as this season, but with a slightly different trim, the chunky Adidas stripes that everyone has with Adidas now, and the kind of two-tone stripes on the shoulders. So it's nice. I don't have any objections to it. I think the most interesting thing is confirmation of a new shirt sponsor that I've never heard of before. Are you aware of who Deal is?
I am told they're an HR solutions platform. That's all I really got. I mean, obviously, kits are so interesting in the sense that, especially for a club like Arsenal, they have a very distinctive look, red with white sleeves. And you would think there's not a lot you can do with that, but as we've seen over the years, there is quite a bit. Now, obviously some of that has been changing through manufacturers. Adidas was there for a long time. Nike did it for a number of years. Then Puma had it for a few years, and then we've since been with Adidas since 2020 or 2019, the 1920 season, the one that led into COVID, was the first we'd gotten there. So if you look through them, it's been kind of, this is your fifth Arsenal season, right?
Right.
No, yeah.
Next season will be my fifth. So
right,
we're looking at the jersey for next season. Yep.
Yeah. In general, I'm aesthetically, I'm a keep it simple, especially when it comes to the home kits. Red with white sleeves. As long as it's got that, I'm pretty happy overall. I kind of like this design. I'm not in love with the big, thicky Adidas stripes. I think that's just kind of that's on all their kits, so that's just what they're doing.
Yep.
Supposedly, some of the detailing on the collar and then on the oh gosh, I can't even think of it. The sleeve, there in the sleeve, the
hems,
is supposedly what is it? Is somehow commemorating the fact that this will be 20 years, the 20 years since the move to the Emirates.
Interesting.
We are 20 years on from the final game at Highbury, which was right around this time, 20 years ago, which is kind of wild because I remember that. I've been watching Arsenal for 20 years now, I guess this is technically my 21st season with Arsenal.
Wow, yeah.
So now old enough to drink in America is my Arsenal fandom. But yeah, I think we can't quite call it an evolution, right? Because we really have just seen sort of different versions of the same design. I guess I have to say, I think of the. I'm just looking back at the ones over the years. Certainly, of the Adidas ones, Adidas has generally been very good in terms of what we got for them. I think I like it. I don't think I like it. I do like it. I realize I'm wearing a Puma kit, but I didn't like a lot of the designs they had during the Puma era. Nike was hit or miss. The good Nike ones were really good, but they had a couple in there that were just woof.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of interesting, I just noticed looking at all the different pictures on Arsenal's page. So I'm looking at the shirt pictures, but some of them show like kind of the whole body, or they show like a 3/4 view. What's interesting is the Adidas logo on the short. So the short front has a monochrome Arsenal crest. That's the inverse of what's on the shirt. On the front right leg. But then the Adidas logo is on the back of the right leg, which is kind of interesting. I don't remember seeing the manufacturer branding on the back like that before of the shorts for any of them. So
can't say I noticed that. Interesting little. I'm sure there's some reason for that. But
this also is not customized with the number on the front either that I'm looking at, which maybe the number will be bigger on the front and they made room for it by not having the Adidas logo on that same leg. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess that'll be interesting on that. I guess if there's one thing that I'm a little kind of intrigued by or kind of interested thinking about, they went with the negative image crest. So it's just all in red and white, the crest.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you see the club's branding has moved more and more towards just the cannon. And the point of reference for me, that kind of point of comparison for me is Liverpool, which I mean has their full crest is fairly ornate with a lot of intricate designs, evocative of the some of the gates around Anfield and the flames for the stadium disasters and commemorating the victims and all that. But they moved away from that in the last few years, and it's basically just been the liverbird. And so I'm kind of, it feels like we're closing in on that moment where Arsenal might just go just full cannon, which would be very, very retro, but.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because if you remember, it was 2 years ago was what they called the year of the cannon, right? And that was when all three of them were all the cannon logo. And then they backed away from it. And now it's like our second and third kits will sometimes, I think maybe both of them this season have just the cannon. And that's maybe what they're doing with that. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll ever go all the way in that direction permanently, but it wouldn't be a shock if they did.
Yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing because you go to the website, for example, and it's got and it's like they basically put the cannon as sort of the you see the cannon, the standalone cannon. The Arsenal app has the standalone cannon.
Yeah, I guess we'll see as that changes. Do you see? I just sent you a link to the goalkeeper kit. I actually really like that. It's like a silver color, and it's like a plain shirt for the top 2/3 or so, and then at the bottom it has this kind of funky geometric pattern that then all of the shorts are. So kind of I like that. I'm wearing the Team USA kit that does the same kind of thing with the pattern that kind of moves from the shirt down to the shorts as part of the transition. I think that's a cool look.
Yeah, it's definitely something I've seen on some of the World Cup stuff, which isn't a surprise. The World Cup kind of I know obviously with the US team that's a Nike, and so between Nike and Adidas, obviously you're talking about a good chunk of the World Cup being outfitted there. So a lot of their their design energy is going to go more towards that. Another interesting change from years past is that we've seen in the last few years that Arsenal has closed the season wearing the next year's home kit in the final game.
Right.
They are not doing that this year. They will wear this year's current kits to the end. Which also, in speaking of kits that were released, Paris Saint-Germain also released their kit for next year. It's they've been wearing a navy blue series for a number of years. That next year's wider red stripe in the middle, and the color is a little more royal blue. For next year.
I see that. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not before I run out of have to not say nice things about them. Before we reach that stretch, it does actually look kind of nice. For what they're looking for what they'll be looking to wear next year. I haven't heard specifically about what they would wear as far as the Champions League final.
Right.
Actually, looking for this, apparently they've been navy blue basically since like 2000.
Well, this very much looks like they have like a little, I don't know if you'd call it a patch, like a little label on the bottom on the hem of the one sleeve that is the French flag. And you can very clearly see it's inspired by, just kind of looking like a French flag with the primary colors.
Yeah, a little more. I mean, obviously, this is sort of PSG's look. The red stripe down the middle has been there. Yeah. Certainly their signature look. The club was founded in the 70s, but that's basically been some variation of that has been something they've worn almost exclusively since Paris Saint-Germain. That's kind of their signature look. I haven't heard, but as I said, haven't heard anything about what they would wear for the Champions League final. My expectation will be that Arsenal will wear red and PSG will wear blue. Which red and which blue remains to be seen.
Right.
But I shouldn't say that. The red we're sure about. Arsenal will wear this year's kits. It'd be interesting to see what PSG does. But I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that again after the Premier League season finishes.
Yep. I will say, like with the PSG shirt, I'm generally not a fan of stacked logos. I don't like the team logo in the center, and then they've got the Nike logo right beneath it. But with their overall shirt design having like a center section demarcated like on either side, it works there in ways that it doesn't when I've seen like older Arsenal shirts that do that, or like City did a year or two ago. I think it works on that shirt more than what I've seen in others. So it's interesting. if you recall, dear viewers and listeners, there was a bit of VAR controversy a couple weeks ago when we played West Ham, in which there was a melee in the 6-yard box, and a VAR decision kind of decided the result of the game, more or less.
We should point out that wasn't a couple of weeks ago. That was a week ago. That was last week.
It's just like with the Timber injury, like my sense of time is getting severely distorted by this really tense title fight, I think. Mm-hmm. So thank you. A week ago, my God. So we had this very lengthy VAR review that resulted in an overturning of the goal that West Ham scored from the corner kick because there was a foul on Raya that superseded everything else. It was interesting. You shared the link to this, and I'd seen this on The Athletic too. They shared the audio that was recorded between the VARs and the VAR, the assistant VAR, and then what they said to the on-field official. And it was interesting. Like, I don't think any one thing that they said is shocking or revelatory, but it's kind of cool getting that peek behind the curtain, Yeah,
I think there's use in this sort of thing in terms of like understanding the process they go through. So I think there's two kinds of criticism that you generally have seen of VAR. A lot of it is particularly outcome driven insofar as, let's be honest, some of this is obviously very much because Arsenal got the benefit of a decision, and this is affecting Arsenal's position in the title race. Let's be honest with ourselves here. We know what this is. It's pot stirring. And a lot of frankly dishonest things. So there's no foul there. Stop it. Just stop it. But I do think there's room in areas for the criticism of VAR, but I think you have to go in with an understanding of the process they use to come about those decisions. For example, you'll see a lot of commentary about a number of fouls taking place in the box. And it's true. There was a lot of grappling, a lot of contact. We talked about Declan Rice was tackling somebody. Like that. Those things are all true. But they you can see there how they're prioritizing the keeper. There's a conversation about what came first, what didn't. I mean, the keeper takes priority. Protection of the keeper takes priority in this case, and that's definitely what they're looking at. And obviously, I think because of the nature of when in the game it took place, when in the season it took place, they're obviously, I think, being a little more careful. And they mentioned like, oh, well, they didn't look at this. Actually, fouls by certain players. Actually, they did, and the referee said, that's nothing. We're not doing that. Come on.
Right.
It is kind of interesting to sort of get that, and there's a lot of things about the way this sort of gets played out. This all was released in part of apparently it's a program in England called Mic'd Up, where they talk about referees and the PGMOL head Howard Webb. They talk about controversial decisions from the week, and it kind of always generates a good deal of conversation, which is really arguably the point of all of this.
Yeah.
But, it is kind of interesting to sort of see them like actually get to sort of see that. And I think it does kind of, again, a lot of this is internet commenters, so I don't want to give it too much credence, but does, I think, burst a couple of bubbles or theories about what was they were looking at. No, we know what they were looking at because we have them saying what they were looking at.
Right. No, that shifting the conversation is clearly one of their goals in releasing this. So it's good. It's interesting. There was other VAR news though, apparently. So I didn't realize this because I didn't watch the whole match. I don't even think for that one I saw highlights. I did see actually some of City playing Crystal Palace a little bit toward the very end earlier this week. But so when they played Everton last week, and this turned out to be the 3-3 draw that they had against, or was this last week or 2 weeks ago? Who knows? What is time?
This was, yeah.
But they drew 3-3 against Everton, which was their drop points that have given us the advantage and the ability to control our own fate for the rest of the season, or at least until the Burnley match that we haven't seen yet happens. We'll see how that goes until we choose to forfeit our fate. But basically, there was apparently a controversial penalty non-call that favored City. City was about to have a penalty given against them, and it didn't. And apparently, the VAR review process said, "Oh, whoops, that should not have happened." Coaches, teams all over the country, do not take this into account in your training. We don't want to basically encourage continuation fouls is what it sounded like, basically, that the contact continued into the box should have been called by the VAR and or the on-field official after being called to the screen and wasn't. So that stinks because that happened when Everton were 3-2 up before Doku scored the late equalizer there. This could have completely changed that. We could be looking at a much different top of the table result right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to... I mean, there's a certain point you see this kind of story, and the answer is sort of like the red card they should have given to Gabriel a few weeks ago. I mean, okay. There's a value in the transparency of it, and sort of saying, I mean, and accountability, too, for the referees. So the NBA does this. They every game they release, they call the 2-minute report, basically the last 2 minutes of, I think, of each half, where they basically review the referee's decisions, because obviously in an NBA game, that's when most of the important stuff happens in terms of referee decisions.
Yeah.
And they kind of release a report on what happened and highlight mistakes, and I think there's a value there in terms of accountability. But in terms of its impact on the title race, I mean, it is what it is. You know, that's just kind of how it goes. Obviously, I can be a little more sanguine about it because the match ended with City dropping points. Whereas if the City had won the game as a result of especially as a result partially of not getting that not being given a not being penalized, obviously I might have preached that a little differently. But I think you kind of have to. It doesn't change at this point what Arsenal has to do. Like that's really kind of where we are, and you kind of have to say okay, and sort of take that into account. Right, this is something you can't do on these kind of plays. So don't do it. But otherwise, okay. The game's still in it as a draw. We still have a 2-point edge. That's just the way it is.
Right. Yeah. So as we draw nearer and nearer to the Champions League final, it looks like we've found out who the official team is going to be for that match, right?
Yes, and it will be a familiar face for us. Daniel Siebert, the German referee, will be taking charge of the 2026 Champions League final in Budapest. And you may remember Siebert from the last Champions League game that Arsenal played. He was the referee for the second leg of Atletico Madrid and Arsenal at the Emirates. He was also, by the way, the referee for the first leg in the quarterfinals against Sporting. He was the referee there in Portugal at the Estadio Jose Alvalade, the game that was won on a late goal by Kai Havertz.
Right. It was funny. I don't know if it was the article that you shared or something else that I had seen about that news, but basically, people were trying to say that this is a good thing for Arsenal because we had some really good results during matches that he officiated. But the same article does say, if you read it to the end, that and so did PSG during their matches. I mean, we're both good teams. That's why we're both in the final.
Right, yeah. So he has apparently he has refereed 9 Champions League matches this season. He did PSG in the league phase. It was a 0-0 draw against Athletic Club Bilbao. So he officiated 2 games at Euro 2024 and 3 at Euro 2020. He was at the 22 World Cup. He apparently will not be at the 2026 World Cup, which is interesting. But who knows what that means? But it'll be a slightly familiar face. He will be there with the ARs will be Jan Seidel and Raphael Fulton, who are also German. Another German, Bastian Dankert, will be the VAR, and then the 4th official will be Sandro Scharer of Switzerland.
Okay.
So it'll be a Germanic officiating crew for the final.
That's interesting.
What you will.
Yeah, we've talked about how they keep them all speaking the same language as each other to help them operate, coherently and efficiently. It's interesting though, there are enough countries outside of Germany that do speak German that leads to some interesting opportunities. I imagine it'd be similar with maybe French. There might be 1 or 2 other languages in Europe where you could pull that off, but yeah.
I mean, English, really, because I think
that would be a big one.
Everyone speaks English. But yeah, it's so yeah, you'll see little dribs and drabs of that stuff coming out. So interesting to see that again.
Yeah, one last thing that I picked up coming across my feeds that was interesting as it could affect Arsenal should this come to pass. FIFA is apparently, according to The Athletic, considering making clubs have at least one U21 player on the pitch at all times, which is an interesting idea. I don't know exactly what it would be looking to accomplish. What I also found really interesting, if you read, it's not long, but like in the third or fourth from the end paragraph, there's apparently already a Premier League rule that I was completely unaware of. A club's squad must have what they're saying is no more than 17 players who are not homegrown in their maximum 25 player squads. So basically they have to have at least 8 players who they consider to be homegrown. And I don't know if you know more details on that. I mean, clearly someone who comes from the academy would be considered homegrown, but like someone like Martinelli, who never played in the Premier League, didn't really play for a top division in Europe or anything. Like, is he considered homegrown? I think by some definitions he would. I don't know according to this Premier League rule if he would be.
So there's definitely there's a couple of things going on here. One, apparently in the piece talking about this, that they're going to address the definition of a homegrown player. So there is an actual technical definition in the rule book of what's homegrown. And yes, it has to do with academy time and rights discovery. There are some clubs that kind of manipulate these things, but it does play a role sometimes in players that clubs are looking to acquire. And there are certain players, like Bukayo Saka certainly counts as a homegrown player for us, obviously.
Right.
Eberechi Eze might, given he spent time in the Arsenal academy as a young lad. I don't know about Declan Rice necessarily. He might, but he might count for others. It's kind of an interesting thing how that gets. I don't know. I'm not fully up on all the details of how it's done. But the point of all of these kind of rules, is to, one of the goals of the Premier League is to develop English talents. Like, that is an important part of what they do. And so part of the way you encourage that is you limit the ability, and lots of leagues have these rules, really, of limiting the number of foreign players that are a part of your side or your team, because you want to make sure those opportunities are there for the players from your own country. MLS has rules like that. Most leagues have rules like that. In a lot of cases, you don't hear about them because most times, most of the league's players are homegrown because they don't really get a lot of foreign players.
Right.
Obviously, the Premier League is a little different in that. But the idea, of course, is that you want the players, you want to be developing your own country's players as part of the league setup, just to help grow the game in your country in general, as well, of course, as maybe theoretically feeding players into the national team.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
And really, as the article points out, this is not so much an issue for the bigger clubs. Like, if you look at team, who's played the most English talent, they have one here and obviously I think the chart here was from late April, so it's about 2 weeks out of date, but the top 3 clubs in terms of minutes played by English under 21 players this season are Newcastle, Manchester City, and Manchester United. So, I mean, they do, Arsenal's in here, we're kind of middle of the pack. Really, the clubs that are kind of going to struggle with this are going to be sort of your middle, bottom tier clubs who are selling a lot of those players. And so for them, it might be an interesting struggle to make sure they have all those spots particularly filled. So it is an interesting little wrinkle to roster building.
There's also 2 different things going on, though. There's the number of youth, well, not even youth, but like homegrown players in your squad, which kind of speaks to English and academy, like players who had come up through the academy. But this new thing they're proposing is actually having a U21 player on the pitch at all times, where like you may have Max Dowman on in the beginning, but then when you sub him out, you can't bring on, I don't know, Christian Norgard or someone instead. It has to be Miles Lewis-Skelly or someone else who is a youth player, which is interesting with that.
I don't believe that's, and maybe I'm misreading because the article is a little vague on this. I don't think it's necessarily you have to have like a 20-year-old necessarily on the field. But I think it's that you'd have to have somebody who at some point was part of that.
Well, I guess the proposal, though, like just in the first paragraph, the proposal would mandate all clubs to have at least one homegrown player from the under 21 or under 21 category on the pitch at all times. So that's separate from the current rule. The current rule has to do with homegrown players and how many of them have to be on your 25-player squad. But this is a new thing that would say, okay, and one youth player essentially has to be on the field no matter what. And that definitely would disadvantage like teams that were just promoted this season who are doing everything they can to field a competitive squad to like force them to have a youth player, but they don't feel is ready. Like that. I don't know, that would be tricky.
Yeah, maybe. Again, we just have all I have on this is with this one article, this one athletic article, and it's kind of vague necessarily about what exactly they mean by that. Because I do think, I guess the idea of a rule about basically having a 20-year-old, you have to have a 20-year-old on the field at any time feels like I don't know, but something about that just doesn't. As I hear that, doesn't quite ring right in my ears. Now, again, I could be talking out of school here, and I don't really know.
It could also be that this is ill-conceived and won't get approved.
Well, no, the way they're talking about it, but I say the way they're talking about it is that it's already gotten a lot of positive review from, what would we say, from the stakeholders, because FIFA's proposing the rule, but you've got the confederations, the continental confederations, and then of course within them their members, their football associations. So there is some, and again, of course, FIFA targets the World Cup. FIFA is much more interested in the international game, and so for them, obviously, the development of young players to set you up for that. Whereas and that's where the individual football associations, like the English FA, cares about developing young English players in the way that the Premier League isn't going to care about as much.
Mm-hmm.